welcome back everybody, my name is Owen and in today's video we're actually going to be playing a game. Now, I don't know. Horde boy. So yeah guys, this is today's video. Welcome back.
What you want to do is open up your system preferences, Bluetooth settings. Next, you want to search for a program called Audio MIDI. Open this program. And what you want to do is create
connected
a multi-output device. So right now I'm trying to pair my AirRaid to my computer. Having some technical difficulties.
pairing
Alright, so I place that back into pairing mode.
connected.
Okay, so now you have two Bluetooth devices connected to your computer. After you create a multi-output device, select Bose SoundLink 3 and install Candy AirRaid. And if you want, you can choose the built-in output, but I'm going to deselect built-in output. And so what you're going to do is now you want to right-click and click use this device for sound. Use this device for sound output. And I want to change the name to Surround. You might want to change the name of this configuration to Bose Skull Candy Setup. So you configure the speakers so that the channels are balanced properly. Now, since I'm going to place my speakers like in that configuration, and that's not the way I have them too. So now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please like, comment, and subscribe.
Hi, my name is Josh, and I'm here with the Mustang GT, and this is my setting. So with this pack, we have a Shimmer Reverb preamp, a British Watt amp going into reverse index. I've called the preset Heavenish because it is slightly reminiscent of a sound that I had for a song called Heavenward on the new album.
Okay, today I'm going to show you how to use aggregate devices and use more than one audio interface at the same time using them. What are aggregate devices? Well, simply put, an aggregate device is a way of stitching together two or more audio interfaces inside your operating system in order to use them as one audio interface into your DAW. For some of you, while you've been recording and doing this sort of thing, you might have noticed that most DAWs, I can't think of any that don't, only allow you to have one audio interface for input and output. Some have a slight twist on it, so on Logic you can use different audio interfaces for your input and a different audio interface for your output. But the fact is, if you've only got several two-channel audio interfaces, you can only use one of those at once. Now that's not great if you want to do something like record drums and you've only got a few two-channel ones. What I'm going to show you is how you can stitch those together and use all of those two-channel interfaces at once and get something like an 8-track way of recording drums, which is obviously what you use for an instrument like that. Another great use for it is what I'm going to be doing today, and that's going to be recording guitar straight out of my Pod AC Pro, but also at the same time recording some deep, dry DIs in case I want to re-amp them later. Other uses, you can use it for more flexibility for headphone mixing. You can get more than one headphone mix. You can use it for doubling your outputs as well as increasing your input. This is really, really useful. It takes about 5 minutes. It's probably one of the most powerful and flexible ways you can get more out of your existing hardware using your computer. Now, I know you can do this in Windows as well, but I don't use Windows, so you have to look elsewhere. So if you do use Windows, go and look it up. It's really, really useful. So today, as I mentioned, I'm going to be using my Pod AC Pro to record a little bit of guitar, and at the same time, I want to take some dry DIs so I can re-amp later. So what I'm going to be doing is creating an aggregate device for my Pod AC Pro and my Scarlett 2i4 that I've got right here. So what I've done, my signal chain at the moment is I've got my guitar going straight into the pod, and then I've got another instrument table plugged into the dry output of the pod. So it has a dry, completely bypassed output. And that's coming all the way around the back here and going into channel 2 of my Focusrite 2i4. At the same time, I've got an SM7 here, which is recording my vocals, which is going into channel 1, so I want to be able to record that at the same time. So at the moment, I'm recording three things. I'm recording my voice, I'm recording the dry guitar, and I'm recording the output of the pod with my rhythm patch playing on it. Let's have a look at how I'm going to do this and how I'm going to create my aggregate device. So you can see here, this is my generic rhythm tone. It's not particularly complicated patch. I might talk about that later, but not right now. It's all going down the left channel. So input 1 of the pod going into the DAW is going to have my rhythm tone on it. Input 2 is going to be kind of blank and dry. So this is another way you can get really cool DIs and things, but I'm not going to talk about this today. How am I going to go about creating an aggregate device? It's really easy. It takes about 5 minutes, if that. First thing to do is to go into Finder and go into Applications. From Applications, you go into Utilities, and you should see Audio MIDI Setup. So you want to click on this because this is what we're going to use. At the moment, you can see all of the in and out devices plugged into my Mac at the moment. You've got the built-in input, built-in output, the HDMI, which has got 2 outs, which is just my TV that I'm using as a monitor. We've got my Scarlett 2i4 plugged into USB, and my Line 6 Pod AC Pro again plugged into USB. And then this is one I've made earlier, which is allowing me to record at the moment. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new one so you guys can see how it's done. So the first thing you want to do is press the little plus sign at the bottom and click Create Aggregate Device. So now we've got a brand new aggregate device down here, and on the right you can see again all of the input and output devices plugged into my computer. The way we create an aggregate device is literally clicking and picking the ones that we want. So obviously we want the Scarlett 2i4, and obviously we want the Pod AC Pro. The order that you click them will have the default impact on which order they come in the sub-devices. So what that means is, at the moment I click the Scarlett 2i4 first. You can swap them around by clicking and dragging them, but I want the Scarlett 2i4 first because it's got my monitor plugged into it. So all that means is, when I go into my digital audio workstation, Input 1 and input 2 will be input 1 and input 2 of the Scala. Inputs 3 and inputs 4 will be inputs 1 and inputs 2 from the Pod HD Pro. So it listens sequentially as if they were one 4-input audio device. The same thing with the outputs. So outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4 will be outputs 1, 2, 3, and 4 from the Scala. Outputs 5 and 6 will be outputs 1 and 2 from the Pod HD Pro. Then the other thing we need to worry about is at the top here, clock source and sample rate. So clock source, I'm not going to go into why it does, but it matters because it helps keep the YouTube sync. And it chooses which ones leads the kind of syncing process, if you like. So at the moment it's selected to Scarlett to i4. It doesn't really matter in this case because they're both pretty good interfaces. If you've got a few audio interfaces you're trying to connect, some of them are a bit cheap and you've got one which is a bit better quality, I'd always recommend using that as a clock source because that's going to be the best one. It's going to be the best source of syncing information, if you like. So I'm just going to leave it on 2i4. And then sample rate, again, I'm going to leave it on default, which is 44.1 kilohertz, which is just, it's the same as the sample rate that I use in Logic. So it's not going to make a lot of difference. The other important thing here is what you might see is drift correction. Sort of in layman's terms, that literally means if one of these starts getting a little bit, if the pod starts getting a little bit out of sync with Scarlett, the computer's going to use special math to correct it. So you want to have that tip for the one that isn't a clock source. It just means that halfway through a tape, these aren't going to go out of sync and you're not going to get horrible sound, which is kind of indescribable until you've heard it, but is absolutely fundamentally unusual. So basically you've got a lot less chance to completely ruin the tape. So we're going to leave that, and then you can just double click on it to name it. So we're going to call this device. And there we go, that's literally it. That's all you need to do. I'm just going to load up Logic. I've got it on a different screen here, just to show you what happens. So I'm using Logic. Obviously, not everyone uses Logic, and this will work with any DAW that runs on that. So we go into Preferences, Audio, and that lists your input and output devices. So I've just changed my input device to Scarlett/Pod, which is the device that we created a little bit earlier. And that's working absolutely fine. So the way I've set that up is in here we've got inputs 1, 2, and 3. As I said before, input 1 is input 1 of the Scarlett. So that's the talkback mic. So you can see that's kind of going up and down up here as I talk. Input 2 is the dry guitar, the dry output that we've taken from the pod. So that's plugged into input 2. And then normally, if I was just using a Scarlett, that would be all you can see. But I've got input 3 here, which is input 1 from the pod. So that will be giving me some of my pod distorted guitar. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to record a little bit of guitar, just so you can see that we're recording the pod input at the same time as the dry input, and you can hear the difference between this. So there you go, that's it. It's absolutely fundamentally one of the easiest but most powerful things you can do, again, to get the most out of your existing hardware. No one that's doing bedroom recording does not know how to do this technique because it's so useful and it's saved my backside for any number of occasions. Again, I'm using this for inputs here, but you can use it for outputs. I'm going to do a little tutorial video on how to set up a headphone mix within Logic but the principles apply to any DAW. And I'm going to do a little tutorial on reamping as well, which is another use you can get out of this. I hope you found this useful. If you've got any questions, please let me know, and I will do my absolute best to answer them. But for now, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you found this useful.
Hi, this is Stefan with HomeMusicProduction.com. Today I'd like to show you how you can combine multiple audio devices such as a FireWire or USB audio device in Mac OS X. So in what scenario would you need to do this? Well, there's a few. You may have multiple audio interfaces that you'd like to utilize at the same time in your DAW. You may have a USB microphone that you'd like to use in conjunction with your audio interface in your DAW. Or you may have a hardware synth that has digital audio going through the USB, and you'd like to utilize that in conjunction with your audio interface in your DAW. And in any of those scenarios, you would need to combine the audio devices to be able to utilize them in the operating system. And Mac allows you to do this very easily. Go ahead and show you how. First, let's go ahead and open up the Audio MIDI setup, which can be located in the utility folder. Here you'll see a listing of all of the audio devices that are in your Mac. Today I want to be able to combine my Steinberg audio interface along with my Korg Kronos, which has audio coming through, digital audio going through the USB. So I want to combine my Steinberg interface and utilize the digital out from my Korg Kronos. So you'll go here and hit the plus sign to create an aggregate device. When you create an aggregate device, it will show you a listing of all of the devices here, and you simply check which devices you'd like to use in the aggregate. Ensure that you set all of the devices to the same sample rate. You can do that by expanding the aggregate device and setting the clock ratio. One thing to note is that all digital audio utilizes its own clock source. Okay, so you may run into the scenario where two audio devices run out of sync. And so Mac utilizes a drift correction, and you can utilize that functionality by checking the drift correction if that's needed. Now you may have a scenario where even with the drift connection, a particular audio device may have trouble syncing. And in that case, you may need to utilize a separate clock source as a master clock and sync all of the digital devices to that clock source. I ran into that scenario with the iMic USB audio device where it just wasn't syncing correctly with any of the other devices. And so to utilize that properly for more than a few moments before it goes out of sync, I would need a master clock. But all of the other devices I have not had any issues with. It was just that one device. So anyway, once you've done that, you next need to set up that device in your DAW. Now, every DAW will do this differently. I'm utilizing Cubase, and in Cubase, you just go here to your device setup and select the aggregate device from the device menu. When you choose that, you'll notice that you now have available in Cubase or in your DAW choice all of the inputs and outputs from the devices that you've selected. So in my case, I have the 12 inputs from my Steinberg and the left and right coming from the Korg Kronos USB. The next thing you'll want to do is set up your ins and outs as you need to within your DAW. And so in Cubase, you have the VST connections, and I can now set up my Korg Kronos utilizing the aggregate device and the USB digital left and right from the Korg Kronos. Meanwhile, I still have access to the other devices that are all going through the Steinberg interface. And that's it. You're all done.
Hi everyone, Watcher here from recordingstudio9.com, and thanks for joining me again, and I hope you're having a fantastic day today. Most mid-range and high-range audio interfaces come with at least 8 channel inputs and 2, 4, or maybe up to 8 channel outputs that you can utilize to capture your audio for recording purposes, and at the same time have multiple outputs to drive your monitors, or maybe even headphone outputs for recording presented to the band, and so on. But what if you actually need more microphone inputs? What if you have a situation where you want to record and mic a drum set fully, so that 8 inputs are no longer enough? You know, in situations where you want to mic up the drum with 2 microphones at least to the kick drum, so you've got inside the kick drum and one outside, the snare, the hi-hats, the cymbals, the toms, and so on. So you may require more than 8. What if you're recording a live band and you need more microphones because you want to mic up, you know, at least 4 or 5 microphones to the drum? Then you've got the bass guitar, the rhythm guitars, the keys, the vocalist and background vocals. Maybe 8 inputs are not enough. To allow additional inputs, most of those mid-range and high-range audio interfaces do come up with an interface called ADAT, which is a fiber optic connection between 2 gears to allow additional 8 inputs, sometimes even more. Examples would be the Behringer's ADA 8000 or the 8200, which allow to have additional 8 microphones and 8 line outputs that connect your existing audio interface, so you can have 16 inputs and maybe up to 8 or up to 16 outputs that you can directly use. Or there's also the PreSonus Digimax 88, you know, it does the same thing. Now, you may have to go and purchase one. But what if you already have another audio interface that has an ADAT input? You'll be able to use 2 audio interfaces connected via USB to your laptop or to your computer, and be able to utilize the 8 inputs and the outputs from each device, giving you maybe 16 audio interfaces. That is fine, the connections will work, but there's one problem. Most DAWs will only allow to communicate and talk with one physical audio interface. So you cannot actually record, let's assume, 16 channel inputs simultaneously all at the same time. So how do we go about it without spending any extra money to purchase additional A to D converters? So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to use my PreSonus AudioBox 1818 VSL, which is an 8-channel input and 8-channel output. And at the same time, my Behringer Firepower FCA 1616, which is again 8-channel input and 8-channel output, to combine them together so that it looks as one device to my DAW. In this case, my choice would be, I'm going to demonstrate in a couple of them, like in PreSonus Studio One Pro, as well as in Traction P5, the free DAW. You can have 16 inputs, so you can record all 16 tracks all at the same time. Now, there's a program called ASIO for All, which is a driver software that is freely available for you to download. You just go to www.asioforall.com, and you can download and install it on your PC or laptop. And that will allow you to select and combine or aggregate multiple physical devices and make it look like a one device to the DAW of your choice. So basically, it will get all of the data coming from your USB connections of your audio interfaces and combine them together as one 16 input device, which is fantastic. That means you can use any DAW to have and capture 16 inputs simultaneously at the same time. Then again, we come up with another issue. Now, each device will have its own internal clock for its sampling rate. And then depending what the sample rate we select, whether it's 44.1 or 48 or 88 kilohertz and so on. And they use the internal clock to sample the incoming audio to convert it into digital data stream to send it to our PC. Now, if we have two devices, each having their own clock inside, any drift between those clocks, because those clocks are not atomic clocks, so they're not precise, they will drift. So even though they're very close and precise, they will drift. So that drift between two devices will cause all to have some issues of data loss because they're not synchronized. You know, each clock is coming at different rate, even very slightly coming at different rate. So that will cause data corruption, and then your audio recording will actually start degrading, and eventually you won't hear other than some howling noise coming in, you know, from your 16 inputs. So as they get out of sync, it will cause a problem. Initially, maybe the first few minutes or so, maybe sometimes 5 minutes, might be fine, but once they start getting out of sync, you lose that synchronization, and then it's unworkable. So in this video, I'm going to demonstrate to you how to go about synchronizing those two devices together. So it doesn't matter how long you are recording, those two devices will be in sync together, so the data flowing to your laptop via the USB is in sync and not corrupted. So without any further ado, let's get onto my desktop and I will do some slideshow and talk about how we achieve this synchronization between the two devices and use what we already have as far as gear without spending any more money buying new gear to have up to 16 inputs and 16 outputs in this case without spending any further money. So let's go. In this presentation, I'm going to demonstrate how I'm going to use ASIO for All, the Windows ASIO driver, to combine the two audio interfaces into one. Let's talk about some of the issues we can have by just trying to join the two devices together. Now, each device uses its own built-in clock for its audio sampling rate for the analog to digital conversion. But when we join the two devices together as one, and if we leave each device to use its own internal clock, now any shift in that clock in any one of the devices will actually cause issues in the A to D conversion, analog to digital conversion. And this can actually cause a major audio distortion problem because they go out of sync and they start shifting, so it won't be possible to record a clean audio or any audio at all because it will actually start cutting off. So what's the workaround? Well, what we need to do is we need to make a synchronization connection between the two devices. And one of the easy ways that I have found is the ADAC input and output connection. And this will enable one device to be the master clock and the second one as the slave. We will have a look at some examples very soon so you can better understand what we are trying to achieve. So here in this example, I have my PreSonus AudioBox 1818 VSL at the top, And at the bottom, I have my Behringer Firepower FCA1616 audio interface. They are obviously connected to my PC or my laptop using the USB connection, and drivers have been installed for each one of those devices. If I actually run my DAW, which is PreSonus Studio One, or any DAW of your choice, you will only be able to select either of these devices. You cannot select them both. So I will show you how we can join them together. But as with our issue of the clock synchronization, what we need to do is connect our ADAT cable connection between the output of the PreSonus Studio One into the input of the FCA 1616. And the cable that we need to use is the ADAT light pipe cable, which looks similar to these. There's some variations, but the end connection looks exactly the same. This so that to synchronize the device clocks to each other to avoid any audio sampling clock drift issues. So we basically connect the output of the AudioBox 1818 VSL into the input of the Firepower FCA 1616 using the ADAT light pipe cable. That is to set who is going to be the master and who is going to be the slave. In this example, I've decided my AudioBox 1818 VSL to be the master. In the setup of the 1818 VSL driver, as you can see indicated with the arrows, my clock source is the internal clock. And I'm using, for simplicity, the ASIO sample rate of 44.1 kilohertz. If your both devices support higher rate, like 48 kilohertz, then I would recommend to select that one. But you need to make sure that the sampling rate of the clock are matched between the two devices. Here I'm demonstrating how I'm selecting the FCA 1616 USB control panels, the sampling rate, and notice the clock source. It says optical input. So the Behringer FCA 1616, instead of using its own internal clock for the sampling, it will use the clock from the optical input that it receives. This way, the data that's being sent from each of the devices have the same clock. So when the data arrives from the two USB connections into our laptop, they are from the same clock coming from my AudioBox 1818 VSL. So once we have that organized, the next step is to get our DAW running. Here in this example, first example, I'm showing you how I set up in PreSonus Studio One, and in the audio setup and selecting the audio device, I'm selecting ASIO for All version 2. By clicking the control panel, we are able to see the ASIO for All control panel. The ASIO for All will detect all of your audio interfaces. As you can see in my case, I have on my laptop the IDP high definition audio codec, a virtual audio device, and then my Behringer FCA 1616 and my AudioBox 1818 VSL. To enable the devices that you want to combine together, you can click and use the highlight button to enable them and to select them. And if you want to individually select each input and output of each of the audio interface, you can click on the plus sign, and that will open up, can manually select each input and output. Now going back into our song setup in Studio One Professional, you can see my inputs displayed. I can have up to 16 inputs, and 1 to 8 are my FCA 1616, and 9 to 16 is my AudioBox 1818 VSL. Create any number of virtual inputs in the matrix so that I can select them and have, up to 16 tracks simultaneously recording the audio. In looking at the outputs, as you can see, I have 16 outputs because my FCA 1616 supports up to 8 outputs or 4 stereo pairs. And then the same thing with my AudioBox 1818 DSL. As you can see, I have another 8 outputs as well, or 4 pairs. Now I have actually physically tested, and I was able to record 16 tracks for up to 30 minutes or more in Studio One without any issues of any audio problems or degradation or any noise and so on. So it works quite well. Here's another example in Traction 5. Again, as you can see in the settings, I have selected the Ezio device type and Ezio for all as my device. And as you can see, my 16 inputs from FCA 1616 and AudioBox all appear in the channel input setup. And again, when I look at the outputs, I have 8 pair of outputs or 8 stereo outputs that I can use in Traction. Well, I hope my explanation was helpful. Now you know how you can use whatever gear you have to expand your number of inputs to be able to capture more microphones, more inputs, more instruments as you're recording maybe a live band, or if you need more microphones. So if it was helpful, give me the thumbs up. That way I know it was useful for you. And as always, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. That way you'll be kept up to date with any new information, any new video I upload to my channel. And here is my bass guitar. I just purchased it today. It was a bargain. I couldn't let it go. It was $100. Usually bass guitars, even secondhand, unknown brands, they're about $300, $400, $500. This was a bargain, and I purchased it for $100. Yes, I don't know how to play the bass guitar or a guitar, but it's not about knowing how to play it. It's about learning how to play it. So I'm going to challenge myself to play a bass guitar so that in my future recordings, I will actually have a live guitar being played rather than rely on my keyboard Korg PA3X Ranger to play the guitar. So that it has more dynamic, so it has more feeling, it has imperfections, because that's what makes it different. Because my Korg Ranger will play the bass guitar, perfectly. It's too perfect. So I want to learn to play basic bass guitar so that I can have my physical input into my recording music, have some imperfections in there, and hopefully improve upon it. And I hope you take these sort of challenges as well, because you need to challenge yourself to improve and get better and enjoy it. I'm sure I'm going to enjoy this 4 strings. So till next time, I'll play some notes for you. As always, enjoy making great music. Till next time, cheerio.
Hey everybody, how's it going? Let's talk about your home recording studio. Today I'm going to be doing kind of a follow-up or a continuation of my review on the Behringer ADA 8200. There was one thing in the review that I just got completely wrong, and I'd like to correct that for posterity's sake. And also it's in response to a couple of the user comments that I got on that video. There was a really exciting feature that I wanted to try out to see if I could get it to work. In the comments to that video, Recording Studio 9 had made the comment that by connecting another ADAT cable, having one both the digital out and the digital in, that I would be able to use the analog ins on the front, send those to my interface, and the analog outputs on the back, and be able to send those to my interface. And for me, that's a really exciting possibility, because while my interface here has 8 analog inputs and 8 analog outputs, you know, 2 of those analog outputs are the main speaker outputs. Another 2 are the headphone outputs, and that really only leaves 4 analog outputs. And when I'm trying to loop in outward gear and trying to get you know, send line level signals to my compressors and things like that, I end up getting in situations where I can only do a couple at a time, and I have to take turns using the same analog outputs. I like being able to have the analog inputs here for recording drums, so I can have you know, 8 and 9 and 10, however many microphones all recording at the same time. But this will be really cool if I can actually get 8 outputs out of this thing as well, and use them in conjunction with the analog outputs on my interface here. So, and also there was a comment by Jan Anderson who had wanted some detail about how I actually hook these things up here. So I figured I can kind of kill 2 birds with 1 stone here. I can try out Recording Studio 9's suggestion to see if I can get ins and outs out of this. And Jant's suggestion to give a little bit more detail on how everything plugs into each other when I get it set up in the software. Also, the main thing that I got wrong in that review was the way that I thought that it worked was if you plugged a microphone into the front panel here, that it ended up essentially passing that signal through to the analog outputs on the back. And I made the suggestion that you could pair this with an audio interface that maybe if it doesn't have ADAT connectivity, digital connectivity, that you could just use the analog outs as basically just a pass through from the front panel through the back panel and into analog inputs on your interface. That's just wrong. It doesn't work that way at all. So sorry. I hope I didn't mislead anybody too badly there. And I'll see if I can put an annotation or something, that, you know, maybe a comment on that other video to let everybody know that, yeah, no, I was just wrong. It happens. So let me get the camera moved in closer here, get things repositioned, and let's plug this thing in and see what we can do. Okay, I got the camera kind of pulled in a little closer here. So let's take a look at on my interface. This is the RME Fireface UCX. I painstakingly removed it from my rack, took the rack ears off. Let's take a look at the back panel here. And, you know, this thing is just chock full of connectivity, so you can imagine how many things I have plugged into it. So that's the reason it took me so long to get around to doing this demonstration, because, man, it's really a pain to get all that disconnected and reconnected. But it was something I needed to do because last time I rearranged everything in my studio, I had to change some of the cables that I was using, and I didn't label the cables. So this was a good opportunity to put some labels on all the cables, so they shouldn't be that difficult to get everything back where it belongs. But the connectivity that we are most interested in here are these 2 little guys right here. These are the ADAT light pipe input and output, and then also the word clock, and that's these 2 coaxial connectors here, these kind of big things that protrude. One is an input and one is an output, so this is the input, this is the output. In my case, I am going to use the RME as the source for the word clock. Now, Recording Studio 9 had made the comment also that that the Ultragain can do word clock sync over an ADAT, but I don't know how to get this to do that. So I'm going to continue to use that coaxial cable for the word clock sync between 2 devices. All right. So on the ADA 8200, you have some very familiar looking connectivity here on the back. See if I can get it in nice and close here. But the same thing. So we've got this ADAT in and out, and then we have that same kind of protruding coaxial word clock connection. Okay, so since I'm going to have this one be the slave, and this one be the master, so that tells me how I'm going to set this little slider here. So there are 4 different positions. So if this one is going to be the slave, which it is, I have the choice here of telling it where the sync is going to come from. Is it going to come from the word clock in, or is it going to come over ADAT? And in my case, it's going to come from the word clock in. So I'm just going to put this slider all the way this way here, which tells it you're in slave mode. Get your sync from the word clock input. Now, if I were going to use this as the master clock and this as the slave, I would have 2 different choices. I would click it over here to setting, and basically I would set from here what my sample rate is going to be. Is it going to be 44.1 or is it going to be 48 kilohertz? But since this is going to be in slave mode, it's going to be told that by this. So, okay, so what we're going to need to actually get them plugged in. Pretty similar to my last time I reviewed this, except for one more cable this time. Okay. Some familiar looking cables here. So this time I have 2 of the Toslink optical cables. And I have that, what was it, a BNC cable? And this is going to be my word clock connection between the 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and plug things in. Now, it's going to be just kind of a crisscross here. So this unit has digital input and output. This has digital input and output. You're going to plug an in to an out and an in to an out. All right, so it's kind of a crisscross. So let's go ahead and plug those in. So I'm going to plug the digital out of here. Gotta plug these in. Whoops. Plug these in the right direction. Okay. So the out of here will go to the in of the interface. I'm not very good at getting these in the right direction. Okay. They have a nice gratifying click when the cable goes all the way in, so you know it's all the way in. Okay. Now, let's do the other one. So, the input on the ADA will go to the output of the interface. And a nice click. Okay. And now with the BNC cable, it's not a directional cable or anything, so put this in here to give it the end a little twist to kind of lock it in place. All right, and since this is going to be my word clock source, I want to make sure that this is going from the word clock out of here. All right, there we go. Got that nice little twisty end there. Okay. All right. So I got kind of a tangle of cables here. It's a little ugly. Let's see if I can get a couple out of the way. Okay. All right. So I've got this guy plugged in. Got power supplied to him and everything. So on the front, I'll go ahead and give it power, and hopefully, let me turn around and look here. Yes, the sync light here says locked, and that's good. That means that he's locked in with the interface. And then on my interface, he has a an LED indicator on the front, a little green light, which you may or may not be able to see very well, but over here, and that's the ADAT light, and that means that yes, he's synced up. He has ADAT connectivity, he's synced, he's locked. That means that these two are talking to each other. So let's go into Reaper and let's see what the inputs and outputs look like. So let's see if we can get input and output at the same time from here. Okay, over on the software side, let's take a look at the settings that I've got here. Okay, so in my Firefaces settings program here, I am going to set this to internal because I had used my Fireface as the master clock source. Now, had I used the ADA 8200 as the master and slaved my interface to that, I would have chosen one of these other options here. So SPDIF coax, that's not a connection that I've made here. The optical in. Now, I guess that's probably what Recording Studio 9 was probably talking about. If I had the 8200 as the master and set the slider switch to ADAT as the clock, then I could probably set my interface to accept that over the optical in. Otherwise, if I have it hooked up like I have it now, where I have that blurred input, where I have the BNC cable, that coaxial cable, I could use that. But instead, I'm using internal here because I'm using my interface as the master clock source. But I can see, okay, here I've got ADAT sync, and it's synced at 48 kilohertz, which is the sample rate that I'm recording at. I've got my sample rate set right here. Clock source internal, and it's all synced up. So that's about all there is to the software setup. Now, depending on what interface you're using, this could be very different looking for your interface's setup. The settings are going to be pretty similar. The options are going to be pretty similar. Just might look different. Okay, so we've got Reaper fired up here. Let's just create a new track. And let's take a look at what all inputs it allows now. Oh, actually, one thing you'll have to do to enable, make sure that you can see all the inputs and outputs is go to Options, go to Preferences, and go to Audio Device. Oh, and of course, I'm recording in the background right now. So anyways, in this window, it'll allow you to set the first and last input and the first and last output. And that way you can select from all the inputs or outputs between those. So in my case, I have to make sure that analog 1 is the first input and ADAT 8 is the last input. Same for the outputs. Analog 1 is the first output and ADAT 8 is the last output. So just make sure to go ahead and set those. I'm in the middle of recording here, so I can't really do that. Okay, I'll cancel out of there. Yeah, let's take a look at what all we got. So let's look at what all inputs we have. So for mono inputs, I've got my analog 1 through 8, and I have my ADAT. Well, and it labels these ADATs a little strangely because on this interface, you could get them from either SPDIF or ADAT. So ADAT 1, ADAT 2, ADAT 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's awesome. Okay, now let's look at outputs. And let's see, a way to do that in Reaper, let's bring the mixer window over and let's click on one of these sims, like a track sim. Okay, so let's go to audio hardware outputs. And if I click on this guy, now I can see, and this lists them a little weird. First, it lists them all as stereo pairs if you want a stereo output, and then it lists them all as individual mono output. So for ease of just kind of readability here, let's look at the mono one. So it starts at analog 1, goes through analog 8. It's got my SPDIF, and then it's got ADAT 1, 2, and then ADAT 8. Okay, so that's great. So we can actually see all 16 inputs and 16 outputs in Reaper. I think that's pretty cool. Let's actually see if we can use them. See what happens here. I am going to grab a couple of cables here. Oh, actually, I actually was a little prepared. Okay. So since on the back of this, the only outputs for line outputs are XLR, and all of my outboard gear uses TRS, quarter-inch TRS. And I did try this last night, and it did actually work. So I've already ordered 8 of these cables in preparation for getting it all hooked up. But I only have one on hand right now, and so this is on one side XLR female, and on the other side it is a quarter-inch TRS. So I am going to, as a line output on channel number 1, I am going to send this into my patch bay and into one of my compressors and see if we can get a signal out. All right, I think that will be good. Okay, let's see if I actually see activity on my compressor. Now, we won't hear the kick drum because I don't have a return set up yet, so the signal is interrupted. So we won't actually hear anything. But let's just play and see. All right, cool. I am some LED activity on my compressor, which is great. I don't have the camera pointing to it, but let's take my word for it. Okay, so that's awesome. I do have output going from here. All right, that's good. So now let's see if I can return to that same channel and use an input as a hardware return. Let's see if now in RIA insert, if we get a return volume. All right, let's hit play. Oh, there is a return volume. Easy Drummer up here, and I have split all of the kit pieces out to their own tracks here. I've only just labeled the kick track here because that's really only the only thing we're going to really play with here. What I want to do is send a signal from my ADA 8200 out to a compressor, and then also send a signal from my compressor back to the ADA 8200. Now, anytime on a single track when I want to loop a piece of hardware in, what I do is I use RIA insert. So I'm going to click on the FX button here. I'm going to look at DSPs. I'm just going to type in the filter REAI. And there's RIA insert. Okay, I've got some funny business going on here with my routing because I'm actually using one of these hardware ins or outs. So I'm hearing an echo of my voice. So very quickly, I will select 8@1 as my SIN. And I'm going to also select 8@1. There we go. Okay. Not hearing myself, and you don't see any activity in the meter here. Now I have 8@1 sent to the input of my compressor, and I have connected to the out of my compressor. So let's take a look and see if we can get play. Hey, all right. So I see a send volume and I see a return volume. And that's just after that goes away. That's freaking cool. Crank up the input. Really just crush it. Oh, that's terrific. That's good news. That's really good news. That's very exciting for me. Having 8 more, not only the 8 more that I had planned to use, but also having 8 more outputs. That's really cool because I know in the future I'm going to be getting, I love hardware compressors. Software compressors, they are amazing. You can do all sorts of great stuff with them. Just me, it's a personal preference. I really love hardware compressors, and especially, just, good ones. I've got a few here. I have plans to get a few more. But having to juggle all these inputs and outputs because I only have so many on my interface. This is really exciting to me to have 8 more outputs. So Recording Studio 9, thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. This is really, really good news for me. Although it does mean I'm going to have to rethink some things in my patch bay or get another patch bay because mine is pretty much full the way I have it arranged right now. So I might have to do some economizing if I'm going to accommodate another 8 outputs. I just don't have 8 more vertical pairs, so I might have to fiddle around a little bit there. But thank you so much. I really do appreciate it, you bringing it to my attention, and I hope that this successfully illustrates how to hook up an ADAT to your audio interface. I mean, your audio interface has got to have ADAT connectivity in the first place. I know this. I try to keep this channel geared towards entry level and beginners, and most beginners aren't really looking at interfaces that have ADAT connectivity. But there are a lot of drummers in the world. There are a lot of people looking to record full band, live performance kinds of things. So hopefully this will be of some help to you guys, and hopefully you'll be as tickled as I am to have so much extra connectivity provided by just one more device and a couple more cables and 8 more cables. All right, thank you very much. I really appreciate all you guys that are viewing, commenting, liking, subscribing, and everything. I really appreciate it. I will see you guys next time.
Hi everyone, it's Vacha here from recordingstudio9.com, and thanks for joining me again. Today we are talking about patch bay, what they are used for, and how we can use them to interconnect all of our outboard gear, whether they're effects gear or processing gear, so that it makes it really easy to have quick interconnection between all of our gears that we have in our home studio. Now, depending on the size of your home studio and the outboard has, you need a patch bay. It all depends on how many times and how often you connect your gear, whether it's your effects gear or your preamp and so on, as you're using different instruments to record or to mix. So if you find yourself, constantly plugging from the back of your gears, then you may need a patch bay. So let's have a quick look of me unboxing my latest patch bay, which is the Behringer 3000, and very short review of all of its functions, and then we will go into detail of how we can actually plan and interconnect all of our gears into our patch bay for much useful and much more flexible way of organizing our home studio.
We got it out of the box. Well, first box. So this is what the box looks like, and that's how it's been. So basically, the Ultrapatch Pro TX1000 is a balanced 48-point bay. The box in our way. Patch bays. They are not cheap. They are quite expensive, especially the balanced ones. This was $29 Australian dollars. That included free delivery, which was the good thing. A lot of other places plus delivery costs. Patch bays are really, really useful.
I know I probably haven't gone through with lot of instruction because this was just unboxing and review. As far as the unit is quite heavy. It's all made of metal, and all inside it, it's got all the connections, all heavy 6.5. True and half normal. And if you want to know how they are and how they operate, there are sort of graphs here to illustrate to you how they work, or you can read, like I did, you can read the manual and learn all about how they work. So I will plug it in and see if it works out well, and I might give you my final review on the Behringer's PX3000 Ultra Patch Pro. So what is a patch bay? Patch bay is basically a series of sockets on both sides of the rack unit. So you have front sockets, and then you have the back sockets, and they are pretty much identical. So what are patch bays used for? They're very handy if you have lots of gear, and to be able to interconnect between each of your gear into each other using the cables. It will eliminate the option of going to the back of your desk and connecting and disconnecting cables all the time, because you have all of your gear coming in to the back of the patch bay, and then allows you to have a central point of all of your gear inputs and outputs available right at the front. Having all of them right here available, it really saves lots of time if you need to change any of your configuration. So if you are using, let's assume, a microphone preamp to record a vocal, and later on you want to be able to use that microphone preamp for other purposes, so within your recording or within your mixing, you don't have to go back of your desk and unplug and plug cables again to be able to record or use that option. But having the patch bay, all you need to do is use patch leads to be able to repatch and reconfigure without accessing back of your desk. One of the general rules with patch bays is the top rows are always outputs and the bottom rows are inputs, and they are marked A and B, and it's sort of like they go in pairs. So in this case, I have 24 pairs of sockets at the front and 24 pairs at the back, marked A1 to A24, B1 to B24. Now, depending how you configure your patch bay connections, and usually patch bays have switches to allow you to configure anywhere between normally up to 3 and sometimes 4 different configurations to allow you to set how you want your back connection A to be connected to the front, and how B is connected to the front B. At the same time, how A and B pairs are interconnected, and what happens when you plug something in here. Now, there are also 2 different types of patch bays. There are unbalanced patch bays, like this one here, the Behringer Ultra Patch Pro Model PX2000. This is an unbalanced patch bay. And there's also the one that you've seen me unbox, is the Behringer Ultra Patch Pro PX3000. And that's a balanced one, which is sitting on my rack. And the differences are obviously the socket connection having balanced and unbalanced connection. The physical differences between unbalanced and balanced connections. The unbalanced has tip and a sleeve, so TS connections, where the balanced connections have 3, as tip, ring, and sleeve, TRS. The difference between unbalanced and balanced is that the balanced connections are less susceptible into electrical noise and interference, where the unbalanced ones are not. Now, there are, as I mentioned, unbalanced and balanced patch bays. The balanced ones are obviously more expensive than the unbalanced ones. So if you like to have, future-proof your home studio, you'd be better off saving a little bit more extra money and buying a balanced one. That way, even if you have unbalanced leads that you want to connect, you can still use your balanced patch bay, but not the other way around. There are usually 3 and sometimes up to 4 different types of connections that a patch bay will allow you to select. Like the Behringer UltraPatch Pro model PX2000 has 4 different types of connections that will allow you to select using the switch here, where the PX3000, the balanced one, has only 3 types of configuration that you can select. But there are common ones, which are the 3 the balanced one has, that most patch bays will allow you to select from. The 3 most common options for types of connections on patch bay are the normalized, the true, and half normalized. Obviously, the normalized and the true being the most common way of connecting all your gear into a patch bay. And the 4th one that is available on the PX2000 is the parallel one. On the PX2000 as well as on the PX3000 on Behringer, there is an illustration of each type of connection and how it actually works available, and it's printed. So you quite easily can look at it and decide which type of configuration per pair you want to configure. Because each one of these switch will configure each A and B pair. I will briefly talk about the 2 common types, the normalized or the normal and the true or open type configuration for patch bays, because that's the most common one. Let's talk about normalized connection. If we have the switch set as normalized for the A1 and B1 pair, an output lead connected to the first socket A, let's assume from your audio interface auxiliary output 1 or even main output left output that is connected there. And then this would be connected to your, let's say, your speaker monitor amplifier, or if it's a powered speaker, then going to your left speaker. Having a normalized setting without being plugged anything at the front, that means your left output from your audio interface is automatically directed to your left speaker. Want to connect your audio interface's left output to something else, then you plug it right at the top, A1. Now what happens is the connection between your A and B at the back sockets have been disconnected, and now your audio interface output, the left output, is now coming out of here. Then you can use that to plug into something else. At the same time, let's assume that you want to plug your keyboard or CD player and you want to hear it from your speakers. All you need to do is plug your keyboard right at the bottom, the B. Now that disconnects this top one, audio interface, and your keyboard is now connected to your speakers, or your CD player is now connected to your speakers. So that's how flexible it is, and that's the normal configuration, and most of the time that's what you would have set up. So let's talk about the true or open connection. With that setting on the switches, it's basically anything at the A connection socket goes to the front, and B goes to the front B as well. So there's no pairing between A and B. They never get connected. Now you might think, well, how would you use that? Well, what do you use for? Well, let's assume these are outputs of your rack-mounted CD player, or your output from your sound module, and so on. That means you have them accessible right here. Then you can connect your CD player from the top A. Remember, top A is always output. you always should consider using top as output. Now you have your CD player, and you can connect it to, let's say, an input of your audio interface. So that's how True works. Same with input. So if you have something which is input only, let's say your set of speakers that you have, you can easily connect now your CD player output into, you know, a speaker, or even a cassette deck that has input and output. So that's how you have access to the back of your cassette deck, or DVR recorder, or DAT recorder as outputs and input. So you can easily patch them into any configuration. So that's how True works. They go straight through, A and B, not having any connection in between. Now, once you have your patch bay, the next thing to do before you do even any connection at all is to plan it. And then by planning, it means writing down all of the gear that you have and each input and output option, so that you can set all of your patch bays required, normalize and true, and group them together. And this is my example of how I have my patch bay organized, so that all of my first 12 sockets, pairs, actually are normalized, and the other 12 are the true connections. So I have all of my audio interface outputs going to my speakers and my effect gears and compressors and so on, where my other half are connections that are coming from my keyboard, coming from my cassette deck, my DVR, and so on. So those are true connections coming in, and other connections that are going out. So it's really important to write down and plan how you want your patch bay to work, so that once you have it all set and all connected at the back, you never have to go behind your desk and reconnect anything again. So here's a quick graphical example of how I have things set up. This patch bay right in the middle, and then I have my audio interface, Audio Box 1818 DSL at the top, and then I have my studio channel at the bottom, and then my PC Helicon with the vocal effects unit at the bottom, and then my speakers. So you can see how I have all of those things interconnected, and they are all normalized connections. So my output 1 and 2 go to my small Logitech speakers, and then you can see how I have my main output left and right from AudioBox 1818 DSL going into my Behringer UltraCurve Pro, which is graphic equalizer, and then from coming out of the graphic DEQ 2496 graphical equalizer going into my Ares E8 left and right speakers. So at any time, I'd be able to patch through and interconnect any one of those connections to the front panel. But at normal circumstances, I don't have to touch anything unless something is different than I want to do. And as you can see on the right-hand side, how I have all of my outputs of my audio effects unit, so I can patch them through. And at the same time, all my keyboards and synthesizers and sound modules come out on the right-hand side as true connections. So did you find my information about patch bays and what are they used for and how to put them into work in your home studio? Then give me the thumbs up. That way I know it was useful. And if you have any questions regarding to patch bays, anything that didn't make much sense to you, please do feel comment below, and I'm more than happy to answer them for you. And if you haven't subscribed to my YouTube channel, please do so. That way you'll always get up to date with any new videos that I upload. And also you're most welcome to visit my website, recordingstudio9.com. where if you actually register on my website, you will also have a whole new set of pages open up for you as a member, where we talk about Project Unplugged.
Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back. So,
Hi, it's Warren here. Marshall. They were at Los Angeles, part of the Los Angeles Film, and they have a wonderful audio. And my friend Jason.
yeah, so today,
Now, the reason why I came here, I thought about the hatchback back then. Frankly, I looked at it and thought to myself, if I start pulling that thing apart, it's going to be about a week ago. It's kind of permanently patched in the way that I fixed that. And so Jason very kindly let us come here and use his cell duality and beautiful console. It's a newer version and very flexible console.
post fade, you know, you name it. And all of that is available over here on this lovely patch bay. The great thing about this patch bay is it allows us full access to everything the console can do, and everything.
Welcome back, everyone, and in today's video,
that all of this equipment over here can do. You've got Pro Tools inputs and outputs. You've got different multi-effects that appear on here, compressors, EQs, external mic trees, you name it, even some keys and DI inputs and outputs, and the two different live rooms to the left and right of the console. Everything comes up on this patch bay. A student can come in here, learn this patch bay, and this basic principle of these patch bays could be applied to any other commercial facility anywhere in the world. So it's very well laid out, and it's a good way for us to talk about how patch bays work. And I can show you basically how my patch bay is laid out and how any patch bay that you're going to get. Also great tips for you, you know, because if you want to turn your private studio into a commercial facility, you're going to want to like take some of these tips here. So let's get stuck into the patch bay. Here, the mic lines are feeding from the live rooms. I think there's 2 live rooms here.
Hello, it's Alex of Fundamentally Flawed and Future Library Podcasts here again, trying to work out how to feed audio successfully from external software into Google Hangouts via Soundflower and Ladyocast. I tried this last time. There's a Hangout that's just sitting on YouTube at the moment with everything in complete silence because I fucked it up properly. Right. I thought I'd worked this out last week, and I kind of had, and then I forgot how to do it. So I'm making this video so that I can refer back to it myself and hopefully help other people. So IOCAST, as hopefully you can see there. So you install both of those things. Once you have installed those things, and let me just come back out of the screen share for a moment, you need to set up your audio routing in your system preferences. So I'm just going to bring up system preferences and I'll show you what I mean, because this is where I've been going wrong with it. So you open up that, I'm going to screen share my system prefs. So you should be able to now see my system preferences. Yeah, there we go. Oh, good, good, good. So on the system preferences, you are going to be looking at sound just over here, second row down, usually on the far right. There we go, sound. So important, input to channel. Very important, because I was getting these two the wrong way around. And sound output is 16 channel. Now the way to imagine Soundflower is it's like a 16 channel mixing desk. It will just automatically route things to any of those 16 channels.
Live and let die.
3, 2, 1. Well, you could go to settings.
A single Voicemeeter, I highly recommend making a donation. It supports the developers and encourages them to keep doing what they're doing. I'm not affiliated with VBA, I just like their products and depend on them quite a bit. Once you download Voicemeeter and restart your computer as the installer requests, open it up. I use Voicemeeter to split my music and voice chat programs for recording purposes, so 2 channels on the left are already in use. Purposes of this video. During the first time usage, you'll need to instruct audio where to go. Right-click the speaker icon in your system tray and select Playback Devices. You should see a new playback device called Voicemeeter Virtual Input. Set as default device. Unless you're splitting audio amongst many cables like me, you'll also want to set it as the default communication device. This is the device that things like Discord, Skype, TeamSpeak, Mumble, and Ventrilo use. Voicemeeter and click the A1 button in the upper right. From this drop-down, you'll want to select whatever device you used to use for audio output. That might be headphones or some desk speakers. Button underneath the first virtual input. Computer that all sound should be sent to this virtual input that Voicemeeter handles. And then we told Voicemeeter to send all that audio back out of your headphones. Sounds pretty redundant, right? Well, trust me, it's going to make sense in a second. Now click an available hardware input. For me, that's going to be hardware input 3, and select your microphone from the list. Click B1 underneath this new hardware input to route your microphone to Voicemeeter's built-in virtual output. This is a sort of fake microphone that we'll be instructing Discord to use. your desktop audio to some virtual output by clicking B1 underneath it too. What we've done now is told Voicemeeter to take both our microphone audio and our desktop audio and mix them into a single channel called Voicemeeter Virtual Output. This new channel operates just like a microphone, but we're also playing our desktop audio into it. The last step of this whole process is to open Discord's audio settings and select this virtual output from the Input Devices menu. And that's it. Now whatever you say into your microphone and whatever you hear in your headphones will be sent through Discord to someone you're sharing screens with. I repeat, I do not recommend using this process if you're on a server or in a standard audio call with someone, because anything you hear will be sent their way too. To change things back and stop sharing your desktop audio, you can either change your microphone back to what it was in your Discord settings, or unroute your desktop audio within Voicemeeter, like this. I hope this has helped. Thank you very much for watching.
Hi, I'm Kong, and I have helped many musicians.
With the recent release of screen sharing on Discord, thanks for watching.
Welcome to Superior Drummer 3, the complete drum production studio. Now available worldwide.
Be an in-depth tutorial on how to use Voicemeeter Banana. I struggled to learn how to use this program, and I had to watch about 10 different YouTube videos before it finally clicked. Now, if they would have been explained to me at the beginning, would have made this entire process much easier. You'll be able to set up all of these programs exactly how you want, from XSplit to OBS to Discord or Skype to getting certain audio to your Twitch stream versus your headphones. You'll be able to do all of it, and it's going to be a lot easier than it might seem. Remember that you can pause between each of these steps. I'm going to try to make them short and sweet. Step 1, download and install Voicemeeter Banana. Step 2, download and install
Hey everybody, it's Bill Durant here from Punished Props. I've been doing my weekly Prop Live Q&A live streams on Google Hangout for the last few weeks, and I've been trying to figure out the best way to run my audio. What I want
I'm coming from my video player. That's a screen share of my video player, the DOM pot player. So I'm not on the camera. I am on screen share right now. I'm trying to find a a good way to play a video so I don't have to keep adjusting the settings on the Hangout all the time. Because yesterday I was in a Hangout and tried to change the settings, and of course they don't save. Sometimes they don't change. You think they do change, and then it gets stuck, and then you make a big mess out of things. So I'm going through my sound mixer. So right now I'm not capturing my desktop, but if I flip a switch, then I'll start capturing the sound from my desktop. Because normally you don't want to do that, because if you do that, you know, and you're in a Hangout with other people in there, well, if you're capturing your desktop, you'll capture what they say and you'll send it right back, and you can't do that. So you only want to capture the desktop when the video's playing, and then they can keep quiet, you know, so that they won't hear echoes. So all they hear is just the video. So anyway, like now if I run video, for instance, let's see. Run video. My computer's just working a little slow for some reason. Now you cannot hear the sound because I'm not capturing the desktop. But if I flip the switch, I'm going to flip the switch right now. Now you should be able to hear my desktop. And the problem, like I said, with that is if people are there and they're talking, they'll hear their own voice coming right back as an echo. So you don't want to do that. Volume of my desktop here. Oh, hi everybody. This is Craig Long. People would ask me, well, how do you if you want to play a video on your desktop, how do you get the sound